I'm going to tell you a miracle story. Now, that said, I'm not a member of any particular church or faith. I have no agenda, no axe to grind. I am a professional rescuer, an EMT, and a ski patroller. Western medicine has been very, very good to me. I have great respect for Western medicine. That said, I do share the view of Teilhard de Chardin, who said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. I'm going to take you back 13 years, February of 2000. I was out on patrol on one of our local mountains. It was snowing, and I'm doing a hill check first thing in the morning and coming through an area where we had the snow guns on. It was closed to the public, and I'm just coming out of that area, skiing down below the last of the snow guns, and my skis ran across a berm of snow, from the guns, which was sticky and like glue, and my skis ran across that berm. They stopped dead. I kept going, busted out of my heel bindings, and pile drived headfirst into the ground. It was like a bomb went off in my body. My screen went totally white. I found myself lying face down on the mountain, looking back up the hill. And I knew right away that I had no feeling or no movement from the neck down, that I had lost that, and that I had also lost the ability to breathe. I looked up the hill at that moment for something, anything, because, let's face it, I was dying, and I saw my dad standing there. Now, it's a very unusual sight because my dad was not a skier, and he was also dead for 7 years at that time. And he didn't look like ghostly or woo at all. I mean, he was just standing there in his old brown pants and yellow windbreaker like he'd just come out for a walk. And I assumed he was there to take me over to the other side. And I said, mouthed the words, "What do I do now?" And he said, "Just breathe." And I always thought that was really good advice from my dad or from anybody. I looked down, noticed that my chest and was beginning to rise and fall again on its own, not of my own volition, but I was breathing again. Fast forward, rescue team starts to appear on scene. 6 guys I know very well, my fellow patrollers. I've always thought it was significant that these are the 6 guys that showed up because out of 150 or so patrollers associated with our hill, these were 6 very devout Christian guys. 1 was a minister, 2 were his deacons, and the 3 other guys very involved with their churches and very involved specifically with healing within their own traditions. They went to work to stabilize me for the trip down the hill, backboard, C-collar, O2, the whole 9 yards. And at a certain point, it came time to roll me over onto my back, log roll me onto the backboard. And when they did, I looked up at the sky for the first time. I kid you not, the clouds opened up, a shaft of light shot out of the sky and illuminated us there at the scene. And at this moment, the boys went off book. And I mean that they did something which is not in our patrol manuals anywhere. I know I've gone back and checked. They put their hands on me and they prayed. And they prayed that I would be healed, that my healing would forever be a demonstration of God's love, compassion, and will for me in my life and in this world, and that I would forever be a witness to that. Now, as they were praying, all my fear left me. I had the feeling that something extraordinary, maybe even miraculous, was taking place here, that it was something much bigger than I was, that I had a part to play in it, but whatever that part was, I was willing to play it, no matter what it was. They reached the end of the prayer, went to secure my hands across my chest, brought my hand in across my chest, it thumped across my chest. I said, "I feel that." Same thing with my left hand. Left hand came in, thump, I feel that. It's not like I just felt it now, very distant, very far away, but still there nonetheless. Before the prayer, there had been nothing, no motion, no sensation from the neck down. After the prayer, sensation began to return. So again, fast forward, I enter my early recovery in what I refer to as a state of grace. Just as clear and conscious and grateful a space as I've ever been in my life, seeing my body come back, seeing the things that I had taken for granted in my life come back, one by one, day by day. Something I couldn't do the day before comes back, I can do it now, coming back to me as gifts. And I come to realize that the simple, the basic things that we do in our lives truly are that. They truly are gifts. They're not to be taken for granted. And so I got in the habit of what I call making rounds. I'd go around to the other patients in the hospital and exchange stories, and they'd tell me their stories, I'd tell them my story, and I saw when I would tell my story that it had an impact, that it made a difference, that it somehow connected them with their faith, somehow inspired them with their ability to recover. And so I told my story a lot. And I was out in the garden one day. We had this beautiful garden under these giant banyan trees, and my friend Vicky came to see me. Vicky I'd known since we were kids, teenagers, one of my oldest friends, and her husband Michael had also been my friend for many, many years. And Michael had died 5 years earlier from melanoma. Let me go on record as saying that is a raging bitch of a disease. In the last year of their life together, as Michael came undone, their relationship became just a horror show of pain and loss and rage and anger, hostility, resentment, the whole panoply of negative human emotion and pain. And when Michael died, yes, it was a tragedy, but in some ways it was a great relief. So I'm out in the garden sitting with Vicky, and I'm telling her about the miracle on the mountain, and I'm saying, I know that there are angels in this world, and that some of them wear red jackets with white crosses on them. And I know that there are at least 6 angels in this world that I can name. And then I had the strange sensation that someone else had joined the conversation, and I looked at Vicky and I said, Vicky, there's one more angel, and it's Michael, and he's here. And for the next half hour, I had the experience of channeling, facilitating a conversation between Vicky and Michael on the other side. And what they said to each other, the words are not important, but what is important is they got to clear and cleanse all of that energy from the last year. They got to forgive themselves, forgive each other, and they got to say, I love you, one more time. Just a beautiful healing experience for all of us. Anyway, she goes away, I go back to my room. That night, Michael comes to see me again. Not an apparition, but a sensation like in the garden, and he tells me something he wants me to tell his wife. Very specific, something very specific. I think I'm just crazy, so I don't call her right away. I sat with it all the next day until late the next night, finally picked up the phone, called Vicky. I said, Vic, Michael came to see me again, and he wants me to tell you something very specific. And he wants me to tell you to reread the letter that he wrote you when the two of you first found out that he was terminal, the one you keep in the box under the bed. She lost it on the phone. She said, oh my God, I know exactly the letter that you mean. I haven't been able to read that letter for years, but just last night when I came home after what happened in the garden, I took that letter out of the box for the very first time and read it again for the very first time. Now, this was like the universe saying to me, just in case you think any of this is a coincidence, pay attention. So I did that. I was out in the garden the next day, praying, meditating. I held my hands up to the light. I said, if it's possible for some group of guys to come to me and put their hands on me, transmit this kind of healing energy to me, why couldn't I do that for someone else? The voice in the garden said, what makes you think you can't? Oh, I said. Spun my chair around, went back to inside, back up to the spinal unit, got off the elevator. The first person I see is my friend Pat. Pat, is a 300-pound black Baptist woman. She is there for pain management, rides around on one of those little rascal scooters. I said, Pat, come on, I need a witness. We go into Macy's room, wheel ourselves into Macy's room. Macy is another black woman. She's in her late 80s and in very bad shape at this hospital. They're just about to flush her out of the program. She can't walk, she can't eat, she can't sleep. She's got bed sores up and down her body. She's not participating in her therapy. And they're just at the point where they're about to flush Macy out of the hospital off to a facility where she would surely die. An abhorrent idea to Macy because all she wanted to do was go home. All she wanted to do was go home. We come up on either side of Macy's bed. I said, Macy, I've been out in the garden again. God told me that he was going to allow me to heal people by putting my hands on them. I will never forget the look of soul in those old eyes when she looked at me and she said, oh, would you put your hands on me, please? So that's what we did. Pat and I put our hands on her and we started to pray. I had no technique, no experience. I just went with what the guys on the hill had done for me. And Pat, for her part, was a professional prayer and prayed as only a 300-pound black Baptist woman can pray, with just, incredible devotion and music, and just we're, hallelujah and amen, the whole 9 yards. And between us, we create this just incredible, beautiful, moving, musical, powerful, healing energy in the room. Goes on for half an hour or so. After it's over, I'm totally exhausted. I look at these women and I say, it's been great, but I got to go to bed. So I did. I went to bed, got up the next morning, physical therapy, came out of physical therapy in my wheelchair. There's Pat sitting in the hall on her scooter. We wheel up together. And I say, we're talking about what happened last night, and all of a sudden we hear this high-pitched voice from the end of the hall. There he is! We both turn around. Here comes Macy walking down the hall with her physical therapist. She's got this beaming smile on her face. Her physical therapist looks absolutely blown away, like, what happened here? And she goes, there he is! The power of Christ done come through Doug, and I can walk again today. The ribbon on this story is that as Macy continued to get better, I continued to get better. On the day that I left the hospital to go home, Macy also left the hospital to go home. Let me be the first to say I take no credit for Macy's healing. Her own faith, her own devotion did the trick. I was just called upon to facilitate that. I do not believe that I am special or uniquely talented. I believe these abilities are in all of us, and you don't have to get paralyzed from the neck down in order to discover them. In fact, I recommend that you do not. I will say that these experiences totally changed my life and my work. For the last 13 years, I've spent developing and refining my approach to this work. I've done hundreds of these sessions now. I've seen some remarkable results. I take no credit for any of it. As I often tell my clients, Spirit does the work. We just show up for the meeting.